So has Jack Della Maddalena been exposed? Will he ever be regarded as a top 10 prospect, maybe even a top 5, or even a potential title challenger in the future from now on? And in my humble opinion, no. I think that he's shown some serious issues against Bassil Hafez. His IQ was some of the worst that I've ever seen at welterweight in a top 15 ranked prospect. I think almost in years. It was absolutely horrific, and I don't even think that his takedown defense was the issue. Throughout that entire fight, he showed great takedown defense, but it was afterwards, after he stuffed the takedowns of Bassil Hafez, it was the constant pulling guillotines that completely ruined it for me. It was completely abysmal. It was awful. It was terrible decision making, and it made him on bottom. It put him on bottom for a very long time and allowed Bassil Hafez to stay in the fight for the entire 3 rounds. In the second round against him, he had Bassil Hafez rocked, gassed, and hurt to the body. And when he shot a panic takedown, he stuffs it perfectly, defends a single leg, gets an underhook. He's safe. He's all right. He's framing off in the face with his hand. He decides to just pull a guillotine out of nowhere. Just pull a guillotine. And every time he pulled one, Bassil Hafez made the great adjustment. He knew it was coming, and he moved off into side control, moved off to the side into half guard. And you know, when you're in half guard or in side control against a guillotine, you're safe. You're totally safe. Guillotines are only threatening when you're in a full guard position, when the guy has his legs completely wrapped around you. But actually, when you're in side control or even half guard, it's actually a more advantageous position for you, especially in side control, because you can go for Von Flue chokes, and half guard you can go for an arm triangle. It just makes it totally way easier to be able to escape the guillotine by being in a half guard position or being in side control. And Bassil Hafez was immediately, I mean almost immediately, going to half guard and side control to defend against that guillotine. And JDM did a few times. He did in the first a couple times. The one in the second round was completely abysmal. I mean, it was terrible. It was awful to watch that. It made me immediately rage when I saw it. I thought that was probably the dumbest decision and probably MMA recent history. There's been some pretty dumb decisions, and that by far was the most blatantly dumb guillotine that I've ever seen in a long time. It's worse than the Glover Teixeira one against Yuri Prohaska. That was a pretty bad guillotine, but I think this one was a by far even worse one because he had the takedown completely stuffed. Glover kind of went for it in the heat of the moment because it was kind of there, it was sitting there. But this one, he had the takedown stuff. He had Bassil Hafez in a pretty much compromised position. He was ready to get out of there. Had his hands down. He was breathing heavy. He was ready to go. Bassil Hafez was ready to get out of there in the second round. It was pretty much done deal. It was a wrap for him. And Jack Della allows him to stay in the fight by pulling the worst guillotine I've almost ever seen, bro. It was actually so enraging. I'm still kind of mad about it. And so right now, I'm thinking, what if that was Sean Brady? What if Jack Della couldn't get Sean Brady out there in the first man of the fight like he usually does? What if Sean Brady was on top of him or was able to get out of the guillotine positions that Jack Della put Bassil Hafez in? He would have lost that fight 30-27, 3 rounds to nothing. Sean Brady would have dominated him on the ground, taking him down. Bassil Hafez did have one good takedown in the first round, by the way. That was a great entry. He got Jack Della down. Jack Della still kind of pulled for a guillotine there, but he still showed a great takedown threat. And if that's Sean Brady, who I think is a much better grappler than Bassil Hafez, I mean, credentials-wise, you have to agree with me there. Sean Brady has been shown to be able to stay on top of people like Craig Jones, who's a great jiu-jitsu practitioner. So him being on top of Jack Della Maddalena, it's easy control time for him. It's such an easy position for him to be in. I think that those guillotines would not have worked. But Jack Della, I just don't understand how when you look at a guy like Bassil Hafez, right? And you see him not necessarily rocked, but he's breaking, he's wilting quite obviously. He is pretty much ready to go home, pack it up. Great performance. You tried, bro. You get some credit. He's ready to get out of there. It's second round. He's gassed. Your body shots have been doing great. At this point, you're taking control of the fight by putting on the pressure, by landing great shots on Basil Hafez. Why or what goes through your mind to make you pull that guillotine? I don't know. Now, is the hype totally dead? No, in my opinion, Jack Della is still a great fighter. I think he has potential to learn from this. I think he'll go back to the film room and look at this and be like, oh, holy shit, that was a really terrible guillotine. I think he'll go back and just really study the tape and understand that, okay, maybe I need to not pull a guillotine when I'm winning a fight and then pretty much almost lose the second round, because that was a swing round. The second round was a total swing round. Jack Della Maddalena won the fight based on the second and third round, and it's definitely possible. In my opinion, I think Jack Della still won the second round, but it's definitely possible for somebody to argue that Basil Hafez won the second round. It's a risky fight for him, and if he doesn't pull that guillotine, he wins this fight at least comfortably 2 rounds to 3, if not finishing Basil Hafez in that second round. So that kind of answers the big question that everybody had about Jack Della. We've all seen him pretty much tear through people in the first round, the first minute of it. He's shown unbelievably great power throughout the entirety of his UFC career in the first round. And the questions that we had for him was, how good is he defending takedowns, and how good is he, when the fight goes past the first round? And it kind of shows that that is somewhere of a weakness. He doesn't have enough experience fighting a full 3 rounds, or enough experience to understand when to pull a guillotine and when not to. And that worries me for the future. If he's fighting out like Sean Brady or Bilal Muhammad or Colby Covington, who's going to shoot takedowns on him and make him work, that worries me. How can JDM figure out a way to survive those if he can't survive a guy like Basil Hafez? And maybe Basil Hafez is one of these guys who's secretly a top 5 talent that we don't know about. Maybe he came in and got shot against Jack Della and proved that maybe he actually is a top 15, a top ranked guy, and we don't know it yet. But he's 8-4 now. He was 8-3 coming into his fight. This guy, Jack Della, was supposed to demolish this guy in the first round, at least. Maybe stuff a couple takedowns, maybe work on him a little bit, and then eventually finish him at the end of the first round. I think that's what most people had, because Basil Hafez, when you look at him, you're like, this guy is definitely explosive. He'll definitely give Jack Della some issues in the first round. So I thought that that's what would happen. And then as the fight went on, he's on short notice. As the fight went on, he would take control and then eventually either KO or TKO Basil Hafez in the first round. That was the expectation for him, and he just completely whiffed it. Basil Hafez was actually landing some great shots. Jack Della is kind of open. He's somewhat kind of open now. He was landing some great shots against the cage. There's a few times that Jack Della got caught. He got caught clean on the chin by either a left hook, right hook by Basil Hafez, who's against the cage, just landing on him. His hands were down. His defense was a bit sloppy, going for body shots. Jack Della looked like a human. And we have to understand this. This is a big point. I don't think the hype is totally dead because of this one reason. Jack Della had to do 2 weight cuts in 2 weeks, and he's not a small welterweight. Look at him. He is lean. He is jacked for the welterweight division. He's not small for it at all. And going through 2 weight cuts in 2 weeks has to take a toll on your mental stability or overall your decision making, and definitely your striking in your body. Maybe Jack Della didn't carry as much power as he normally would because of the weight cuts. Maybe this truly was the worst Jack Della Maddalena that we're ever going to see ever. And I can truly believe that, because 2 weight cuts in 2 weeks is no joke. It's hard on your body. And to even further that point, Jack Della didn't even have to take this matchup. He could have damn well moved on with his life after the Sean Brady fight fell out, fought in September on that 293 card, and just moved on with his life. And this whole fight would have never ever been an issue. We wouldn't even be talking about it. It wouldn't even be a thing. He could have moved on, fought another top 15 guy, or maybe even a Neil Magny in September on that 293 card, and been totally fine. He took this on short notice when he didn't have to. So respect to Jack Della. Respect to him for doing this, for even taking this fight in the first place. Sean Brady fell out, and then I think somebody else was filling in for him. Then something happened with him. I think he actually had like some sort of brain issue or heart issue that actually ended his career. So then he fights this week against Basil Hafez. So there was no reason in the world for JDM to even take this matchup. He wanted just to fight. He wanted to fight, which I respect him for that. But then again, what would have been better for him? Waiting out till September, coming off a nice weight cut, another new training camp, and getting a new fresh opponent who you're not doing on short notice, or taking a guy on short notice after having another weight cut and then doing another one who you're fighting a guy who's very explosive in the first round and also just explosive in general. So when you look at the two of them, waiting till September doesn't look so bad in hindsight for Jack Della right now. It definitely doesn't, but he gets the win anyways by split decision. He completely, you can almost give a 10-8 round. Personally, I don't think it was a 10-8 round in the third round for Jack Della, only because he didn't drop him at any point, but he was putting the whooping on Basil Hafez in that third round. First round kind of goes to Basil Hafez. He had a lot of control time. Second round is close. You can argue that round, and that's where people are kind of like, bro. Jack Della was viewed as this destroyer of worlds, this conqueror, this king of kings, because he was putting everybody out in that first round. And a lot of people had him beating Sean Brady by KO in the first because Bilal Muhammad did it. But the one question we had was about his takedown defense. And now that that's kind of somewhat a little bit been answered, I don't doubt that people are going to pick Sean Brady. Probably be 70-30 now for Sean Brady after this performance, because JDM didn't look good. Let's be honest here. He didn't look like the guy we thought he was going to be. Me personally, I had a lot of hype behind this guy. He was one of my more favorite fighters to watch because I thought he had a chance to beat Leon Edwards. Now, I think it's pretty slim. Like, he still could definitely beat Leon, but I think the odds of it now are really slim unless he can improve. Again, he has time to improve. I think that he'll go back and watch this and be like, okay, I can fix these things. It was short notice, 2 weight cuts. His cardio, his cardio was a bit out of whack, but again, 2 weight cuts in 2 weeks is going to hurt your cardio. And he still had enough in round 3 to push and keep going and put the whooping on Basil Hafez. So I'm not going to discredit his cardio too much about this, but it does worry me in his future matchups how he's going to do, because welterweight does have a lot of grapplers, especially in the top 5. Bilal Muhammad, Colby Covington, Hamzat, Usman, like that right there are grapplers. Even Leon Edwards can grapple a little bit, so there's a lot of grapplers at welterweight, man. So him moving forward, it does scare me. In my opinion, the hype isn't dead, but the stock has definitely lowered. I'm not saying there's no hope. Oh, he'll never be anything ever in his entire career. Definitely not. I think he still has a great career ahead of him because he is 26 years old. He's not old. He's still a young man in terms of MMA, in terms of UFC. So he does a lot of time to get better, improve, and learn from his mistakes. So I do expect him to learn from mistakes. The hype is not dead, but the stock is lowered in Jack Della Maddalena. So that's the video. That's all I have for you guys today. I appreciate you guys for watching up to this point. It means a lot to me. Hit that subscribe button and that bell icon as well for notifications. I would appreciate that. Last time, the hype is not dead, but the stock is lowered. Peace.